Thank you, Ms. Lakin. We'll go the first round, and members each have 5 minutes of questions. Let me say at the outset, thank you for being here and being part of this historic congressional hearing. But I do want to say, before we congratulate ourselves too much about 60% of the American population voting, we've got to take a look at some European countries, which have much higher percentages. For us to be satisfied with 60%, I think should be an embarrassment to us and not a source of great pride. We can and we should do better. Every eligible American should be voting. We should give them that opportunity, and that means making certain that the voting procedures are realistic. The University of Maryland teamed up with the Brennan Center and did a survey that they recently released of 2,386 respondents nationwide. When it comes to the issue of voter ID, what they found, I think, is very eye-opening. Congressman Hunt earlier brought in 6 or 8 government-issued IDs and to demonstrate how easy it is to get a voter ID. They included, of course, the obvious driver's license, but went on to include passports, global entry, and other things. If you're aware of those systems, you know that they're not free. You end up spending money to obtain that government ID. And it's understandable that lower-income individuals are less likely to be in that position. The Brennan study with the University of Maryland found some interesting things as well when it comes to the easiness of using the driver's license as a voter ID. 21 million voting-age U.S. citizens do not have a current driver's license, 21 million. Another 12% have a non-expired license, but it does not have both a current name and a current address for that voter. 96% of those with some discrepancy have a license without a current address. So you move and you don't change your driver's license. In many states, you can't use that as your ID to vote. When you look at subsets affected by this, younger Americans, 41% of those between 18 and 24, currently don't have a driver's license with a current name. Young Black Americans, 47%, neither current name or address. 30% no license at all for young Black Americans. So to say this is an easy thing is not realistic. And of course, when they do the analysis, people with less education and lower annual incomes are more likely to lack a current driver's license. To say that this is somehow the bigotry of low expectations, I think, is insulting. These individuals, many of them are just living difficult lives with a lot of demands. Ms. Lakin, have you run into this in your analysis of the use of voter ID?
Yes, Senator, thank you for that question. Absolutely. And when it comes to voter ID, I would say the devil is in the details. While we all agree that elections should be safe and secure and free and fair, and that voters should be verifying that identity, the truth of the matter is that in many instances, there are voter IDs that are really difficult to comply with, and that they are adopted with discriminatory intent and with discriminatory impact. And we have seen this, for example, in the North Carolina case that we litigated in 2013, which was adopted, challenged a law that was adopted shortly after Shelby County. In that case, the state, following Shelby County, went ahead and changed the voter ID law that it was going to impose, and in doing so, dropped IDs that were disproportionately held by Black voters, and left in the bill only those voter IDs that were disproportionately held by white voters. Ultimately, the Fourth Circuit ruled that the law targeted Black voters with almost surgical precision and struck down that law as unconstitutional.
I think those were the exact words used by the court in North Carolina. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor, Senator.
We call him His Honor all the time. It's fine.
I'm a litigator.
Go straight to
hard habits to break.
Mr. Hewitt, I guess they're telling us that we're living in the past. We seem to think this is still Jim Crow America and things are much better off. And yet, since the Shelby decision, we've taken a closer look at the changes in state laws. And what do we find?
What we're finding is the same type of surgical precision or attempts proximate to that. You know, I know as a native of New Orleans, in the great state of Louisiana, the state where, you know, since the Voter Rights Act was adopted, every redistricting plan for the Louisiana House of Representatives was rejected by DOJ or federal court because it undermined black voting strength. And that pattern would have continued but for Shelby County and the gutting of the pre-clearance provision. We see the same patterns that we've been seeing for a long time. And also growing up in Louisiana, I know that in black communities, certainly in my home state, people in black communities tend to vote in person. That's how we did it. But during the pandemic, when there were new methods of voting, newly available or newly popularized, absentee or by mail, or in even Harris County, Texas, drive-through voting, which is in-person voting, but drive-through voting, what we saw is as soon as black voters started using those methods, all of a sudden they became a problem. All of a sudden there's some type of issue. It's that kind of surgical precision that underlied our desire and in fact, our action to file intentional discrimination claims in cases like we did in Georgia, challenging SB 202. Because if you're challenging the very means that are newly popular with black voters, you must have a problem with those black voters. And so these patterns are repeating themselves over and over again.
Thank you very much. Senator Lee?